Hello everyone and welcome back to another classic WoW video. Today I wanted to talk to everyone about 10 things to look forward to in classic WoW. Before we get started, I want to bring to everyone's attention a new classic WoW tool called classicwow.live. Classicwow.live is a website built by members of the community for the community. The site is going to be the ultimate community resource for all things classic WoW. Not only is there a DPS tool in the works, but there is also going to be guides, streaming, featured videos, exclusive videos, and so much more. There's a video outlining everything that the site has to offer on our channel, or you can head over there right now and check it out for yourself. The links are down below. Now, back to why we're here. I tried to make this list based on what I've seen in the communities and not based on my own top 10. And this list is in no particular order. So with that, let's get things started off with the server and community building. If you've played retail and you've played WoW before the looking for group system was implemented, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Servers and players used to be able to build reputations. That's not to say that these reputations were always a good thing. If someone is a horrible ninja looter, it wasn't uncommon for lots of guilds to blacklist that player and never invite them to their guild or even to a raid or dungeon. When server communities used to exist, you'd even hear about people who were just chilling in their capital city getting whispers to go heal a dungeon or tank a dungeon for them because they were known on that server for being an amazing tank or healer. This didn't only happen for trying to fill spots for groups either. If someone was known for having a rare enchant or a rare crafting recipe, it was not uncommon for them to receive whispers to make the item for random people all the time. I would know, I was one of those annoying guys asking to get stuff made all the time. This was not only relevant for endgame either. You would often find yourself grouping up with people while you're leveling up and potentially making new friends and building up the community further. This aspect of WoW has all but been removed from the game in its current state and is definitely one of the best parts of what made classic WoW so popular. The next item that I know is high on everyone's list are the talents. If you never played WoW before Mists of Pandaria, then you're in for a real treat. Currently, the talent system is one choice of 3 talents every 15 levels. The level spread is slightly different for Death Knights and Demon Hunters, but you get the point. In Classic, starting at level 10, you get 1 talent every level all the way through 60, and there are dozens of talents that you can choose from between your 3 different specializations. The talent system in Classic did have some requirements for points to be spent within the spec tree before you could progress further down, but there were many more options in Classic compared to what we have today. Today, once you've taken a specialization, you're given all the skills that you need for that spec. There are barely any choices that you need to make once you've done that. In Classic, players had the option to be a full-blown hybrid spec rather than just playing one specialization. Shaman tanks, anyone? The other great part of the original talent system is that even if you only gain 1 level, it doesn't look like much, but you still get that sense of personal growth as you're gaining 1 talent point and making your character just that much stronger. Another big thing to look forward to in Classic are the classes. In Retail, there are a lot of similarities between classes. For example, in Retail, a Druid, Death Knight, and Warlock all have an ability to allow them to resurrect an ally mid-combat. Hell, even Hunters had that ability with certain pets for a while. In Classic, it was only the Druid. Blizzard worked on the class identity throughout Legion, and I'll be honest, for the most part, they did a good job with the class fantasy. What they didn't do a good job with is giving each class their own identity. Blizzard has the issue with trying to make every class viable and trying to normalize every raid comp so people can play whatever class they want. While that may be a good thing for them, it takes away from the class identity that we used to have. I largely believe that these class identities have been stripped from the game because of how much Blizzard has gutted each class. No longer do classes have their unique skills that are only usable in very niche situations. Each class is built in a very similar manner now. Because of the uniqueness of each class in Classic, they each had their own pros and cons. There was no one class that could do everything and anything. Staying on the topic of classes, we're also going to see the return of class quests, which were one of the highlights, in my opinion, in Classic. And to top everything else off, we're going to have faction-locked classes again with the Shaman and Paladin. Something that I know was a big hitter for me, but I didn't realize it was important to as many other people, are the mounts. In retail, if you have enough heirlooms, you can start the game at level 1 with a 60% speed mount. Even if you don't have your heirloom mount, don't fret, you get your first mount at level 20, and from all the quests and dungeons you'll be running, you'll have plenty of gold to buy it. That is crazy to think about when the mounts in Classic weren't even available until level 40, and they were expensive, so a lot of new players didn't even get them until they were well after 40. In fact, mounts were so expensive, there were lots of players at cap who wouldn't even bother with the epic mount because of its price point. With no mounts until level 40 and slower traveling times, it makes the world feel bigger. Not only that, but it makes the player feel much more smaller than the great heroic champion that can do anything that retail makes your character out to be. And the absolute best part of the mounts in Classic is that there was no flying anywhere. You're going to see a lot more people running around while you're leveling, you're questing, and just grinding because all the traveling has to be done on the ground, right next to where you're doing all those things. Compared to retail, where everyone's flying around just going from one quest objective to another, or one mining node to another. Before I mention this next item, I want everyone to think about the last time they got a piece of gear that was memorable to them. That should be something that in 5 years' time, you can look back and go, oh my god, I still can't believe that I got that item, it was so crazy. Those kind of moments happened regularly in Classic. I can still remember the first time I even saw an epic BOE drop. I was on my Hunter in Blackrock Depths working on one of my attunements, and the item was the Terran Icebreaker. I didn't even win the roll, but it just goes to show you how memorable loot was in Classic. I can also recall when my guild leader, who was also our main tank, finally got his second binding of the Windseeker from Gar in Molten Core. Loot had special meaning back in the day, which we don't see today. Memorable loot has taken even a further step back because of the removal of tier sets. I'm not saying that we need set bonuses on our armor to have them be memorable, but each class having a unique look is very important. So why else is gear no longer satisfying? Well, we also have to contend with one of the worst additions to the game, Warforging and Titan Forging. This is a huge reason as to why people just don't care about loot anymore. All they care about is pushing the item level higher. There's no more debating on what weapons you should use based on their attack speed and their min and max damage. Personal loot is another reason why the memorable gear is just disappearing. I could go on with an entire video about personal/master loot, but just know that you won't have to deal with that crap anymore in Classic. And the last thing that's just killing memorable loot is transmog. While I do like the transmog system, you can no longer see a paladin full tier 2 and run up to him and just inspect them and look at their crazy gear, imagining how much time they must have put in to get those items. Today, you go up to that paladin, inspect them, and they're in half greens. It's not exciting. Speaking of farming, our next item to look forward to is the effort and time investment actually being rewarding. Right now in retail, the effort that you need to put in to get some really good gear is extremely minimal. Whereas in Classic, to just get your first epic, it could take you weeks of farming blues just to try and get into the position to be able to get your epic. The slower leveling also made every level from 1 to 60 feel so much more rewarding than what we have today. Today you don't have to eat and drink between pulls, you have the dungeon farming, you have your looking for group, and you don't have to read quest text anymore. It used to be when you read your quest and you figured out where you needed to go, there was a sense of accomplishment rather than just following the path that Blizzard blindly laid before you. Another great example of a sense of accomplishment you will have with Classic are your raid attunements. Just becoming attuned with the raid itself was a huge sense of accomplishment within itself, let alone actually getting into the raid and downing your first boss. And the last example I have for this is the PvP ranks in the PvP gear. This may be the most extreme example because of how hard it could be to climb the PvP ranks, but climbing those ranks were extremely exciting. I was excited just to see my friends finally be able to go and buy PvP blues. That's how exciting it was. Now think of that compared to how you obtain gear in PvP today. It's quite different. Speaking of PvP, that is something else you should definitely be looking forward to in Classic, even if you weren't a big PvPer. Classic was the only time that World PvP actually existed on a consistent basis. This wasn't to say that it was raids going into the opposing faction's capital, but more so the World PvP from leveling. As always, Stranglethorn Vale was always a bloodbath on PvP servers. You could almost never go there to quest without fear of ending up in a PvP skirmish of some sort. While Stranglethorn Vale was quite possibly the most conflicted area, Tarn Mill and South Shore was by far the most infamous for World PvP. Not only is the World PvP something to look forward to, but the original battlegrounds are as well. Warsong Goch had no time limit, and it wasn't unheard of for one game to run for multiple hours at a time if the teams were that evenly matched. But what might be the most exciting for Classic PvP is Alterac Valley. AV with no resource limits and being able to summon bosses is so exciting in Classic. If you've never heard about the summonable bosses in AV, I would suggest looking up Loch Halar the Ice Lord and see what it's all about. It's another small detail that made Classic so enjoyable. Taking a step back from PvP and looking into PvE, the dungeons are also something else we should be looking forward to. In Classic, you can't just blindly run through a dungeon and pull 20 mobs and AoE them all down and then go to the next 20 mobs and do the same thing. Classic is going to require you to use crowd control abilities and use them often. Going through a dungeon without a hunter trap or a rogue sap or a mage's polymorph is going to make the dungeon much more difficult. The mechanics of a dungeon themselves weren't very difficult, they were just very unforgiving, and pulling one too many mobs on accident could often lead to a wipe. Not only will the difficulty be something to look forward to, but we will also finally have the original versions of so many dungeons restored to their original glory. When Cataclysm was released, there was so much of the world that was changed. That was much more than just the questing zones themselves. There was also multiple dungeons that were changed as well, and we finally get to see them again the way they were meant to be seen. Quite possibly the thing that I'm looking forward to the most are the RPG elements that Blizzard has slowly removed from the game. These are items like weapon skills, resistances, and skill ranks. When your character never used a mace before and suddenly picks one up and is a god with it, it makes little sense to me. I love the idea of having to go out in the world and use that weapon to become more proficient with it. And I've never understood why Blizzard felt like it would be okay to remove elemental resistances from the game. Casting a fireball at a fire elemental should not hurt it. I don't care what you think, you're wrong. Fire doesn't hurt fire. Other things, like removing ranged ammo, never made sense to me either. Where does a hunter get his bullets or arrows for their respective weapons? Classic WoW had all of these RPG elements that made the entire game just feel better. Was it annoying to be in the middle of a dungeon or a raid or a battleground and run out of arrows? Of course it was, but it's what made the world feel more immersive. Before I get into the last item, I'd just like to thank everyone for watching, and if you want a chance to win a free game, head over to the Less Than Epic channel right now because we have a giveaway going on for our first 1,000 subs. Check out the video and find out how you can win a free copy of Iron Maiden. And the last thing to look forward to when Classic finally launches is a fresh start. World of Warcraft has been out for nearly 15 years. There are people like myself who have been playing the game since then. For some people, just trying to get into the game can be overwhelming at times because of how much there is to do to get caught up. Sure, Blizzard has introduced the character boosts and have sped up leveling to allow players to get to the same level as everyone else as quickly as possible. But that doesn't take away from the countless hours people have spent farming mounts, farming transmog, or farming reputations. When Classic launches, everyone will be at the beginning once again. Nothing about their previous achievements will matter, and everyone will start at ground zero. That isn't something we've been able to say about WoW in nearly 15 years. And it's something that could be very healthy for the franchise in general. I know of some people who have been interested in playing WoW and even went as far as to buy the game and use their free boost. But they couldn't keep up with it because they were overwhelmed with the amount of things they were behind on compared to a seasoned veteran. They were even overwhelmed when starting a fresh character because of what seems like a daunting challenge of leveling all the way up from 1 to 120. All in all, a fresh start is going to be good for everyone involved. Well guys, those are 10 things that you should look forward to when Classic WoW goes live. I want to hear from you guys what you're looking forward to the most, and let me know if there's something on this list that I missed that you are looking forward to. As always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hey, it's Radit here. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe as well. It really helps out the channel. We put out multiple new videos each week and we appreciate all of your support. Thanks for watching everyone, and cheers.